Hello friends, welcome to the first session of the Get Set Go series. Today we will be learning the concept of cost of material consumed, the amount that would be debited to the income and expenditure account of a not-for-profit organization. Now from the term not-for-profit, we understand that their main aim is not to earn profit but to render service. Now there are different types of organizations which are formed as a not-for-profit organization, like you could have a sports club, you could have a charitable hospital which is being formed as a not-for-profit organization. Now these type of organizations do have certain items that are consumed by it. Like sports club have sports material that is used in the club. Charitable hospitals have medicines which are purchased and consumed. Now you will be coming across such items in these type of organization, and you will be required to calculate the amount of the sports material consumed during the year or the medicines consumed during the year by a charitable hospital, which is to be debited to the income and expenditure. Further, there can be also, these organizations could also have stationery which is being used by it. So you might have to compute what is the stationery consumed during the year. Why are we trying to find out the amount of material that is consumed during the year? That is to find out the amount that would go on the debit side of our income and expenditure account. So when you compute the amount and find out with available details the cost of the material which is consumed, you would be getting the amount that you would be putting on the debit side of your income and expenditure account. Now, these type of questions come for around 3 marks in the examination as per the sample question paper. Now, as we go further, normally we would be finding certain informations would be normally given to you in the question. Like the information that you can expect to be given in the question are as follows. Like you would be given the stock of that particular material, whether it is medicine or sports material, both the opening and the closing value of the stock would be given. The payment which is made for the material during that particular year, that would be given in the question. There would be the balances of creditors both at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. So both the opening and the closing value would be given. Sometimes even the advances that are given to these suppliers, both the opening and the closing might also be given. Using these information, we would be calculating the cost of material consumed during the year. Now, how do we go about computing this particular cost of material consumed during the year? For this, there are actually two different ways that you can use. The first is the statement method, where using a statement method, we would be computing this amount. The other one is where you prepare the accounts and find out the cost of material consumed. I'll be discussing both these methods now in detail. First, the statement method. You prepare a statement like this. For calculation of material consumed during the year, which is to be debited to the income and expenditure account. Particulars and amount column, you can have two amount columns as well, inner and outer. Now we start this statement always with the amount which is paid for the material during the year. Normally, if the receipt and payment account is given, there on the payment side you would find the amount that has been paid, or if the information is directly given, then you take the amount that is being paid for that material during the year as the starting point of your statement. Then there are certain items that would be added and certain items that would be subtracted. Now the items that get added to this are the stock of that particular material at the beginning of the year, also called as the opening stock. You would add the creditors at the end of the period or the closing creditors, and you would also add the advance which was made at the beginning of the year, that is the opening advance. Whereas items that would be deducted are the stock at the end of the year, also known as the closing stock, the creditors balance as of the 1st April, that is the beginning of the year, also known as the opening creditors, and the advance on 31st March of the year, that is the closing advance. Now, when these items are added and subtracted, you would be arriving at the cost of the material which is consumed during the year, which you would debit to the income and expenditure. Now, why do we add or subtract these items? To the amount paid, we add these items because this opening stock items, whatever lying in the stock at the beginning of the year, would have been consumed during the year. That is why we add it. Similarly, the advance which was given at the beginning of the year, that was given in the previous year related to current year, so we add it. And the creditors at the closing, whatever we have, also have to be included in the current year's item. So we add these items. And opposite is done because the closing stock is a stock still remaining which is going to be consumed in the next year. So we are deducting that. The opening creditors are the creditors related to previous year which was consumed, which has come as creditors, and the advance which is paid at the end or the closing advance is the advance paid for the next year. So that is to be eliminated. So this way we subtract these items. So just take down this particular statement format, and it would be very simple to solve using the statement method. Just read the question and put in the information in the respective columns and just add and subtract to get the amount of the material consumed during the year. Other method that I was talking about is the account method, where we would be preparing the creditor's account. Now, in the creditors account, the following balances would be incorporated. We start with the opening value of the creditors, opening balance of the creditors written on the credit side. Because this is a liability payable, it comes on the credit side. It has a credit balance. And the closing creditors would come on the opposite side, that is the debit side. Then we would incorporate, if any advance is there, then the advance at the beginning would be having a debit balance. So it is written as to balance brought down advance at the beginning here. And the closing advance, that is advance at the end, would come on the credit side. Further, the amount that we took as a starting point in our statement, that is the amount which was paid during the year, which you would also find it in the receipt and payment account on the payment side, is taken here because the journal entry that we pass is creditors to bank. So it comes on the debit side. Once incorporating these information, you would be getting the balancing figure of purchase. This basically represents the credit purchase that was made during the year. So this is the value that we are trying to ascertain by preparing this creditors account. Once we have prepared this creditors account and ascertained the credit purchase made during the year, we would be using this particular formula to calculate the cost of material consumed. The formula, please note down, for cost of material consumed is to the opening stock of that particular material, we would be adding the purchases. Here it is the total purchases including the cash purchase and credit purchase. This credit purchase we have just determined by preparing the creditors account here as a balancing figure, this amount. The cash purchase, if any given in the question, has to be included. This is a point where you could forget. Please remember to include the cash purchases because we are adding the total purchases. And then from that we subtract the closing stock of that material at the end of the period. So by using this formula, you would be arriving at the amount of the cost of material consumed during the year, whether it is sports material or stationery consumed or the medicine consumed by the charitable hospital. So this amount that you arrive at would be put on the debit side of the income and expenditure account as cost of material consumed. So I hope the concepts are clear. Whichever method suits you, which you find comfortable, you please adopt that method in solving the question. Now, we will go into a practical question and use these methods I'll be solving this particular question. Please take a screenshot of this and we will solve this question under both the methods. So let's start. Calculate the amount of sports material to be transferred to income and expenditure account of Champion Sports Club for the year ended 31st March 2021. The details given here are sports material as on 31st March 2020. So this is the opening stock, 1 lakh. Sports material as on 31st March 2021. This is the closing stock of material. Creditors for sports material as on 31st March 2020. This is the opening creditors. Creditors for sports material as on 31st March 2021. This is the closing balance of the creditors. Cash purchase of sports material. This is the sports material for which immediately settlement was made by paying cash. Amount paid to creditors for sports material. So when we use a statement method, this is a starting point. And when we use account method, this amount would be for the amount on the debit side of creditors account as creditors to bank. This is the amount which was paid during the year towards the sports material which was purchased to the creditors. Finally, they have also given one more item, sports material sold during the year. So out of the sports material which was there in stock, purchased, out of that some sports material was sold during the year. They have given us the book value here. The book value was 1 lakh, but it was sold for 1,05,000. Now, this is an additional item which I'll be explaining to you, that when any sports material which has been there in the stock is sold, then we would be removing out from that particular total amount, we will remove off the book value. The book value of the material which has been sold. You will not be taking this 1 lakh. You will be taking 1 lakh out. Then the remaining amount that you get would be the value of the material consumed. So let's start. We prepare the statement. Prepare this format for the statement. This is for finding out the cost of sports material consumed during the year. Now, particulars and 2 amount columns, inner and outer column. So we start with the amount paid for the sports material during the year. So here we have this amount, that is 1,80,000. So I'm going to write that amount which is our starting. Now we'll take and incorporate all these items in chronological order. First is a sports material, that is the opening stock, 1 lakh. So we know we add the opening stock of material. So that is 1 lakh. So I'm writing it in the inner column. Next we have is the closing stock of material 1,20,000. We know that that is to be subtracted. So we write it in the subtract column. Closing stock of material 1,20,000 in the inner column. The next we have is the creditors, opening 75,000, closing 90. So what do we add? We add the closing creditors and we add the opening creditors. Subtract this amount here. So the closing creditors was 90,000 and the opening creditors were 75,000. Finally, we have the cash purchase of sports material, which we'll take it in the extra amount later. That would be extra purchase. So it has to be included, in the cost. So I would put it here. The cash purchases of the material, because it has to be included in the material which has been consumed. That comes to 80,000. Finally, we are left with just one item, that is sports material, which is sold during the year. So we have to remove this book value of 1 lakh which is included there, because that is no longer available to be consumed. So we write here the sports material which has been sold during the year. The book value is what is taken here, which came to 1 lakh. Now we'll do the calculation. We add these three amounts. 1 lakh plus 90 plus 80 comes to 2 lakh 70,000. So add it up here. So the total of this is 4 lakh 50,000. Now we'll add up the subtract items. So when we add these up, you get 2 lakh 95,000 as the subtract item total. So we subtracted from 4 lakh 50, 2 lakh 95. That would give us 1 lakh 55,000. So this is the value of material, sports material which were consumed during the year, which is debited to income and expenditure account. So this is how we would be finding using the statement method. Now, if the same question, we are going to solve using the account method. Look at the account that is prepared here. Creditors account. I prepared the format and kept it ready. Now, we would be writing the opening value of the creditors. You go back and see the opening value of creditors was 75,000, closing was 90,000. So 75,000 opening, 90,000 closing. Then we have the values of the creditors has been taken. Now we have the amount which was paid to the creditors that we would take. So here is the amount of paid was 1,80,000. And as you see, we don't have any advances in this question. If it is given, you write the opening here and the closing advance here. So there's nothing else left. We can close this particular account. The total of this is 2,70,000. Write it on the other side. Find the difference, and that difference of 1,95,000 balancing figure represents your credit purchase. Now, using this, we will be now calculating the cost of material which is consumed during the year. Now, we use the formula. Now, we have the formula of opening stock. To that, we add the cash purchases plus the credit purchases. From this, we have to remember that there was some portion of the sports material which was sold. So we would deduct the book value of material which is being sold, and we would subtract also the closing stock of the material. Now we'll replace this with the amounts. Opening stock of material was 1 lakh, closing 1,20,000, sale value, book value was 1 lakh. Cash purchases 80,000. Keeping these figures in mind, we'll put it here. So opening stock was 1 lakh. Cash purchases was 80,000. Credit purchases, we have got it here. 1,95,000. Then we have the book value of the material which was sold. It was 1 lakh. And we had closing stock which was valued at 1,20,000. Now add these three up. So it comes to 3,75,000. From that we subtract off 2,20,000. So we are left with 1,55,000, which is the cost of material consumed. So I hope that is clear how we did the calculation for this using the accounts method. Now moving on, I'll be doing one more question for you. Let us look at this question. Calculate the amount of medicines consumed during the year ended 31st March 2020. Now here they have given us the opening stock of medicine 50,000. Then they have given closing stock of medicine 45,000 more than opening stock. So they're not given directly, but they've given that it is more than the opening stock by 45. So opening stock is 50, you add 45 to it, you get 95,000. This is the value of the closing stock of medicine. Next we have opening creditors 20,000. Closing creditors again 50% of opening creditors. So here opening creditors is 20. So 50% of the 20,000 rupees, that would give us rupees 10,000. So that is the value of your closing creditors. And then they have given us the amount paid to creditors during the year, 2 lakh. So now let us solve this question under both the method. Let's start with the first method, the statement method. So prepare a format like this: cost of medicines consumed during the year. Particulars and two amount column, inner and outer column. We start with the amount which was paid for the medicine, which was rupees 2 lakh. So write that amount here. Other than that, what do we have? We just have the opening and closing stock of medicine, opening and closing creditors. So what do we add? We add the opening stock of medicines and we subtract closing stock of medicines. And we add the closing value of the creditors and we subtract opening creditors. Now we just have to incorporate these amounts there. So opening stock of medicine, if you see here, is 50, closing is 95. So 50,000 in the inner column, 95,000 here in the inner. Then we had opening creditors 20,000, closing creditors was 50% of it, so it was 10,000. So we just add these two together and write it in the outer column, 60,000. So we get the total as 2,60,000. Now we add these two together and get the total amount to be subtracted as 1,15,000. Now subtract this and we get here 45,000, 1 lakh. So 1,45,000 is the value of the medicine, cost of the medicine which is consumed during the year, which has to be debited to income and expenditure. So I hope this method is simple enough for you and clear. Same question. If we do not want statement method, for those who would prefer account method, who find it more simpler, we'll do it using this method. Now here they have given us the value, if you can recall or refer to the question and see that given the opening creditors value was 20,000 and closing creditor value was 50% of it, so it was 10,000. They have not given value of advances, so that will be blank. If it is given, opening on the debit side, closing advance on the credit side. And they've also given the amount which was paid, which we started with, it is 2 lakh. So that comes on the debit side here, 2 lakh. So just close this account, 2,10,000. Write it on the other side, 2,10,000. You get the balancing figure as 1,09,000. So this is the value of the credit purchase. Now we use the formula, cost of medicines consumed during the year. For this, we start with the opening stock of medicine. To that we add the purchases and we subtract the closing stock of medicine. Now opening stock of medicine, if you see, was 50,000, closing was 95 and there is no cash purchase this question. So go here, we write opening stock 50,000. Purchases, only credit purchase available with us. No cash purchase is given, so we just add that and subtract the closing stock of 95,000. So 2,40,000 minus 95,000, that would give you 1,45,000 as the cost of medicine. So you see here, it is the same amount that you get, whichever you find easier. Please do adopt that particular method to solve. So I hope it is clear to you with this. Now, moving further, here I am providing you with a self-assessment question. So use this particular question. I want you to solve this question. Please do not refer to any source. Solve it all by yourself after going through this entire video. Please don't skip. Watch the entire video, get a clarity on the concept, and then solve this self-assessment question. I will be uploading the solution to this tomorrow. So thank you for joining me today. See you soon. Keep studying. All the best.